So, Garfield finally came out. You guys know, the one with Chris Pratt? I actually remember the first time I saw that Chris Pratt was gonna be Garfield, I genuinely thought it was a joke. I mean, the amount of times he's casted into voice acting roles that just don't make any goddamn sense is ridiculous. I mean, we had Mario, which, I mean, he did okay. I'll give him that, he did okay, but it's definitely not Mario. But Garfield? Garfield, lazy, grumpy Garfield? So I decided to put it upon myself to watch this movie because let's be real, most of you probably aren't going to watch this movie. And I know what you're all thinking. Oh, this movie just has to do with Garfield, right? Probably, since the movie's called Garfield, but I hate to disappoint you guys here. This has little to nothing to do with Garfield at all. Hell, if anything, this has more to do with cow romance than Garfield. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. You thought this was gonna be a movie about a grumpy cat, you know, doing some shenanigans with his owner, John, and his friend, Odie? Nope, I'm sorry. It's actually just about two cows who wanna bang. Garfield, it's just a side story. It doesn't really matter. To start off, there's not really a surprise here. The movie kind of sucked. And not just in the way of, oh, it's not a Garfield movie, right? It didn't stay true to Garfield. Now, I am an avid fan of Garfield, you know, like I buy all the memorabilia, you know, I dress as him every Halloween. But at the same time, I'm not the type of person to get upset when something's not like completely true to the source material. But even besides that, if we take everything out, if we don't even think about the fact that the name Garfield is put on this movie, it's still a shitty movie. This movie is actually about the origin story of Garfield. And I know you're thinking, oh, the origin story of how he met John. But no, this movie has absolutely nothing to do with John at all. It has to do with Garfield's real father, Garfield's cat father. Father who Garfield thought left him when he was younger, and then Garfield ended up finding John in a restaurant and ate a bunch of food. But the thing about this movie is it really just doesn't have anything to do specific to Garfield. If you took any other cartoon character, put it in this movie, and put that as a title, it would make the exact same amount of sense that this movie does. So let's start off with Garfield as a character. Is he like Garfield? Is he, you know, grumpy, you know, lazy and stuff like that? No, not at all. Hell, Garfield Kart does a better job at the character than the movie. Because like I said, we all know Garfield, he's lazy, he's grumpy, and he has a very lazy voice, low lazy voice with a snarky attitude, right? Yeah, that's what we know about Garfield. However, in this movie, it's the complete opposite. Garfield is full of energy, hyperactive, bouncing off the wall, and just occasionally says some catchphrases that we all know and love from Garfield. There are multiple times throughout the movie he just randomly mentions Monday. It has nothing to do with it actually being Monday. Just anytime something is difficult or annoying, he'd be like, damn, feels like a Monday, doesn't it, guys? Looks at the camera, breaks the fourth wall, everyone roars laughter. I love lasagna, right? I eat a bunch of lasagna, which he does. I'll give him that. He definitely eats lasagna in this movie. But I'm sorry, just because you shout random catchphrases that is famously known for that character does not just mean that it is that character. Now, I can't necessarily blame Chris Pratt for this because all he knows how to do is just play Chris Pratt. He's not a voice actor. And it's not like he was typecasted for this movie because Chris Pratt's voice does not match Garfield at all. And it's just blatantly obvious, especially with the other cast members of this movie, that they're just taking the name of Garfield, taking big name actors, slamming it together with a garbage story in hopes that it'll make a bunch of money. There's absolutely zero passion or zero effort when it came to the actual movie. And the thing is, they didn't even try to get Chris Pratt to act like a lazy, grumpy cat. They just made him act like Chris Pratt while Chris Pratt just says Garfield things. If you are going into this movie, you know, thinking about nostalgia, say you're an old man, I loved back in the day when they made newspapers with Garfield in the comic strips. If you're going there to watch it for that, I'm sorry, buddy. You're not gonna get the Garfield that you know and love. Now, this movie is absolutely horrible and I hated every second of it, but something I don't hate is this shirt. You guys like this shirt? Oh, golly gee, I'm dripped out of my mind. Golly gee. Well, that's all thanks to Into the AM. Into the AM is a team of artists and creators who've been crafting premium apparel since 2012. Their designs aren't solely about looking good, they're about feeling amazing on top of showcasing your passion. Every piece is created with thought and dedication, and you can see and feel the passion in every single stitch of these clothes. And I'll be honest, the shirts they sent me are some of the most comfortable shirts I've ever worn. They fit me perfectly. I like the nice relaxed fit. They're very soft and comfortable, stretchy as well. And I have already washed these multiple times, and a lot of problem shirts have is when you wash them, they start getting really rough and hard and tight, but I have not had the problem with these shirts at all. And one thing I love about Into the AM is a lot of companies, they tend to not have that authenticity, but I feel like Into the AM really has that in spades, including their creativity, especially in a world where AI tends to be taking over a lot of stuff. Each design tells a story and resonates with your sense of individuality. You know, all of you are just wondering, oh, I want to drip like you, pig. I want to be dripped out like you, pig. Well, you can do that right now because Into the AM is offering a fantastic deal. You can get 3 graphic tees just for $61.95 or 3 basic tees for $52.95. Plus, you can get an additional 10% off of that using my link in the description. Now, normally I would say spoiler warning, you know, because I'm about to talk about the movie, but in this case, you don't care. Let's be honest. You don't give a shit. You can get spoiled all day with this movie. You don't care. So the movie starts with Garfield getting left behind by his father. And then he meets John, who is in an Italian restaurant eating some food, and then they instantly become best friends as Garfield eats the entire restaurant. As we all know, Garfield bounces off the wall, jumps everywhere, teleports different directions just to eat food every different way. So we get like an entire 10-15 minutes of the movie just like talking about how fantastic his life is now. You know, he's got John, he's got Odie, he's got unlimited amounts of food. His life is great. All of that changed when the Fire Nation attacked, but no, all of that changed when Garfield's dad showed up. But anyway, his dad comes out of the blue and then just ropes him into this random situation that's about to happen in this movie. So you want to know the entire premise of this movie because we're about to get there. So Garfield's dad, you know, he's a little bit of a criminal. He goes around stealing milk from different places. Get it? Cats like milk. You know, he went out one day to go find some milk and never came back. So they end up running into this cat. And the cat is the main villain of this movie. I mean, I would say villain in quotations because the motivations behind this villain is so stupid. So long story short about why she becomes the villain, they used to run in a gang together, right? Garfield's dad and her. They used to go around different places stealing milk, but then all of a sudden one day she got caught by the animal control and put in the pound. And for some weird reason, she blamed everything on Garfield's dad. I still do not understand why. There is not really a reason that she blamed him specifically for it. Like, there's multiple people in this crew that they had stealing milk, but she just specifically targeted him and said it's his fault that it happened. But anyway, she was impounded for like 5 years. Oh yeah, I completely forgot to mention, this has nothing to do with Garfield at all. Like, Garfield is not involved into this story whatsoever. It's completely off of what Garfield is. But like I said, she blames Garfield's dad. But now, in order to pay back the debt of 5 years in the pound, she wants Garfield's dad to steal 5 years worth of milk from a milk farm. And that's the premise of the movie. Garfield's dad needs to go get a bunch of milk to pay back his debt to a cat. I'm not joking. That is the entire premise of the movie. So the whole like Mission Impossible chicken run type situation, because it does feel like they kind of took a little page out of the Chicken Run sequel book for this movie, because it turns into kind of like a Mission Impossible break-in type thing, you know, something that we all know about Garfield. And throughout the entire movie, it's just filled with slapstick comedy, which, don't get me wrong, I don't hate slapstick comedy. There's a time and place for it. Hell, a lot of times I love it. But it just feels like all it's doing is just filling the spaces in between bad writing. Because whenever a funny haha moment happens where Garfield hits a tree or bounces off of something, it just keeps going. It just doesn't stop. There are times I honestly forgot what was even going on in the movie because there was just a random 5-minute slapstick scene that has nothing to do with where they're going, what they're doing, or anything. It just kept going. Let's just give you a quick idea of what I'm talking about. There's a scene when they were trying to get on a train, right? And then Garfield's dad puts him on like a tree limb, pulls it back, and then launches him toward the train. And then we get like 5 minutes of Garfield bouncing back and forth between trees, different obstacles, stuff like that. And then finally he lands into the train. I'm not joking. It lasts a long time of him just bouncing back and forth. It's just like the joke happened and then it just kept going. And you want to know something interesting? No one ever laughed in the theater. Like, you know, whenever it's like a kid's movie, you always think, you know, the kids are going to laugh. The kids are going to love this, right? No, it was a rarity to ever hear a laugh. It's just a little chuckle. You know, the audience might do a little chuckle here and there, but that was about it. If you fail at making kids laugh, who are actually the easiest audience in the world to ever make laugh, then you have failed miserably. But then the movie gets even worse, or better, depending on who you ask. Like I said, them breaking into the farm becomes like a Mission Impossible break-in type scenario, but not without the help of a random cow or bull. I mean, you know, hey, yo, I got my girls in there, right? My girl's in there. They kicked me out one time and she's in there and I want my girl. Oh yeah, by the way, also I know how to break into this facility. So I'm kind of placed here as just a plot piece so you guys can, you know, break in with a little bit of help. So that's kind of what happens. They convince Odie the Bull to help them if they also try to get his girl released. But during the planning of this break-in, and Odie used roadkill to represent Garfield, right? Like showing them where they need to go on the map and stuff. And then Garfield argues about the fact that he used roadkill for his representation. And then he keeps arguing, and then he keeps arguing, and then he keeps arguing. I'm not joking. It felt like 10 minutes passed where they just got in an argument about him using roadkill to show him how to break in, and they wouldn't stop arguing about it. I get it. It's funny, like Odie doesn't like him and he used roadkill because he doesn't like him, but then just make like a passerby comment like, hey, what the fuck? Why'd you use this? And then he just keeps going. No, he just like, hey man, can we pick something else, something more cool? And then he keeps talking. No, like, can we do something like other than roadkill? Because I'm like a really cool cat, right? I'm so cool and hyperactive and energetic. You know, Garfield. It's me, Garfield. You know, you get it. There are so many times in this movie, it just completely derails everything. And it's just stupid, small, dumb shit like that. I'm actually pissed off that I watched this. I'm not joking. I'm mad that I watched this movie. Oh yeah, you guys might be wondering, where's John and Odie, right? Like we've had a whole movie happen so far. Where's John and Odie? Well, neither of them have anything to do with the movie at all. Odie kind of just is there. He never really does anything. He just tags along for the ride and has no relevance to the movie whatsoever. And then John, we just get random cutscenes here and there of him sitting on hold on the phone, trying to figure out where Garfield is. That's it. I think John is in the movie for maybe 5 minutes tops. But you know, there are a few moments where Garfield stops everything he's doing and then looks at the camera and goes, boy, is it Monday, guys? It really feels like it's kind of a Monday right here. This guy's got a case of the Mondays, right? Remember when Garfield said Monday? So anyway, they break into the milk factory. It's a huge Mission Impossible break-in situation. And obviously we have our slapstick shenanigans here and there, them jumping around, bouncing off of walls and shit, you know, like Garfield does. I know I mentioned this before, but I'm bringing this back up because the sequel of Chicken Run in general, it does feel like they tried to recreate what they did. Because they even had a Mrs. Tweedy type character who was like the main guard of the whole milk factory. And she played as, you know, the evil guard lady who hates these animals. So after all of that, they break in, they find the milk, and then they get into a situation where the evil guard lady shows up. Garfield's dad's like, hey, yo, I'm out. He pushes Odie and Garfield into the guard's hands, gets into a semi full of milk, and then drives off. Not only did his dad go to the store to get milk, he took the entire semi of milk and then left and never came back. And you know, Garfield does the whole, oh, I thought he changed. I thought my dad changed for the better. but he's still a piece of shit. But then Garfield finds out that his dad actually does care, because apparently his dad was spying on Garfield in a tree across the road from his house every day for like the past year. And then Garfield's like, oh, you do care. And then Garfield's dad ends up getting captured by the cat lady, because the cat lady didn't actually think that he would get the milk. She was just hoping that he'd get caught and put into the pound for years. But then she decides to kill him. She decides to get on a train and throw him off a bridge. But Garfield came in to save the day by bouncing off of trees and bouncing around and doing Garfield shit. Now listen, all right? I wouldn't say I'm like a big fan of Garfield, right? Hell, you could even say I don't even really like Garfield. But to even put the name Garfield onto this movie is insulting. And I highly recommend that you avoid this movie like the plague. 90% of this movie is just goofy, slapstick comedy that just isn't funny at all and just goes on for way too long. Random catchphrases of Garfield that just is thrown in there. Horrible writing. Horrible character design. You want to know how the movie ends? You want to know how Garfield saves his dad? Is these evil henchmen, right? These evil henchmen who've been evil the entire time. They haven't even thought one time about changing their ways at all. And then all of a sudden, they're dangling both his dad and Garfield off the cliff. And then they just go, I'm a good guy now. I don't want to do this. I don't want to kill these guys anymore. Change my mind. For no fucking reason. There was no lead up to this. To give a good example of how it's done right, in the movie Box Trolls, we had henchmen throughout the movie who were just having a philosophical dilemma the entire time, being like, are we the good guys? It's hard to tell. Like, you know, sometimes I start to think maybe we are the bad guys. And they have that like comedic back and forth throughout the movie. And then in the end, they're like, you know what? I think we were right. We are the bad guys, aren't we? And then they change their ways. In this movie, they're just bad the whole time. And then for no fucking reason, they just decide to be good. God, I can't tell you how much I hate this movie. I highly recommend that you just avoid this, all right? Don't watch it. Don't do it to yourself. Have a nice day.